What's going on, everybody? This is Randall Barnes, the founder of HBCU Pulse and host of HBCU Pulse Radio, in the building for another special edition of the show on today, where we are recapping the Coach Vick Experience that airs on BET on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. We're on episode 2. It was called Big State versus Little State. I have Kiya Wimbush-Robinson, ClutchPoints writer and also a Virginia State alumna and Norfolk State alumna. I was expecting a lot from this episode, Kiya, and I'm glad that we didn't get the shade. But how you feeling about this episode, just to start off?
I thought it was cute. I'm just glad they kept it real cute because like HBC rivalry beef, like it can really go there, and I'm really glad that like BET and the show kept it really classy because I know like students from Norfolk State love to talk about they're big state, oh woo do this that and third. So I'm glad they kept it cute. I really do wish they could have like done a deeper dive into it a little bit more. I honestly would have loved to hear like Michael Vick's like thoughts like on the whole like rivalry, especially because like he's from the area, so I'm sure that he knows like the history with the rivalry and everything. It was okay, but like I said, I'm just glad they kept it real cute when it came to my school, so I'm happy.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I do not want to hear Vic's thoughts on the rivalry because I don't think you'd be happy. I don't think you'd be happy to hear what he got to say. Like you know how you're in, like someone's in class, because I never did this, but someone's in class and they didn't do the research and like yeah. I don't think you would want Vic to do that. Like,
You know what? No, honestly, no shade to Michael Vick, but just based on these 2 little episodes, it's giving very much Marshawn Lynch. I'm just here so I won't get mine. Like that's the energy I be getting from him when I watch the show. And that may not be what he's giving in real life, but that's like me as a viewer. Like that's what like it feels like.
Yeah, we're going to get into that because definitely this episode was given that. But before we fully get started, so the episode was entitled Big State versus Little State. And the game that they covered was Michael Vick and Norfolk State's first and only win of the season against Virginia State. Their first and only win against Virginia State. And I did like how they tried their best to tell the story in such rapid succession, but I feel like we didn't get a good enough gist of it. So could you briefly give us the history of Norfolk State and Virginia State, aka the Big State versus Little State rivalry?
Yes, of course. Just to make a long story short, basically, Norfolk State once upon a time was not only a part of Virginia State, was a part of Virginia Union. So at first they were part of Virginia Union, and then they became, what's the proper term? I think auxiliary campus, I guess, of Virginia State University. And then they ended up becoming Norfolk State University. So that's why, like, compared to other HBCUs, their founders' day is a little bit later than like others. So theirs is 1935 in comparison to like a lot of HBCUs that were founded like in the 1800s because they were a part of other institutions before becoming like their own like entity. So like I said, they were once a part of Virginia Union, then Virginia State, and then Norfolk State. So they're the little brother.
And just to add to it, so Norfolk State competed in the CIAA until the late 1990s. I believe 1997, they made their jump to the MEAC at that point, and they never looked back. Virginia State stayed in the CIAA, doing a lot of great things in the CIAA. Norfolk State, they actually had some winning seasons, but those winning seasons were voided because of some eligibility concerns and things like that, which is very unfortunate. But it seems like, the football team was never really able to get it going. And what I alluded to on last week, if people didn't hear it, is that Virginia State in a lot of these games, they've beaten Norfolk. Like, I know that they had Michael Vick's team on the ropes, and maybe some folks would be like, oh, well, like it's just a new team for Michael Vick and Norfolk State. Like, no, like Dawson Odoms was there in 2023 when I first started writing for ClutchPoints. Probably one of the funniest Saturdays when Virginia State, because that game, the end of that game was really weird. Even ESPN, like big, not like ESPN Plus, like big ESPN covered how weird that game was. It was a very weird ending. And then Virginia State wins, and Dawson Odoms, who's now the coach of Bowie State, so VSU will see him soon. He apologized to the fans. He said, "I would like to apologize to the fans for that game." And it was, I was writing that article and I kept laughing because I'm like, man, he apologized. And I know that happens, but it still just was wild because I think he apologized for the loss and then also how they lost. Like, it was crazy. But that was just, that's just a moment in time. But Michael Vick and Norfolk State did pull off this victory, but we're going to get to that in a second
Barely,
because
but
Kiya, you brought up a very interesting point about Michael Vick's motivation. So I want to start off with this, right? So I didn't really like this episode. I gotta be honest. Like, I have to be honest. I said I would not lie. Okay. The first episode was really dope. I think that they introduced the series and Michael Vick being at Norfolk State really well. The second one, I wasn't really feeling it because it just seemed like they were rushing. And I'm a former account executive, and when I've done other recaps of like Grownish and other shows, and it's on TV, I'll lean on me being an account executive. And I used to sell ads back in the day in 2020 and 2021. But like, it has really brought me back to those days because it's like that first commercial break was legitimately 5 minutes. And I timed it because I was like writing
it
my
was
notes.
so many commercials. I was like, okay, then we get into the show. Oh, Dentistics for your dog. I'm just like, didn't we just see a commercial?
There were, of course, once again, 5 commercial breaks. And I say that because to me, I split it in 4 to 5 acts. I have to sort of split it into 5. And the reason why I bring up the commercial breaks is because clearly the editing was paced to that. Because if you have a streaming product, typically you're going to get about the 10 to 12 minutes back that you give up for commercials. But when you're on TV, you're cutting and editing the episode for TV. And the thing about it is, and I get into it with my brother a lot about this, we debate about it. He is, of course, a freshman at Fort Valley, and he does not like advertising and commercials. He thinks oftentimes it gets excessive. And I can agree it gets excessive, but I worked in ads, so I see it very much so differently. And even to this day, I still sort of work in ads because that is how the media business makes money because people don't want to, don't want to subscribe. So, I mean, you might as well sit through this 2 minute ad break. I mean, might as well, I mean, help us get some money. So, and they might see ads on this video. Sorry, you know what I mean? But like, it just, but the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I just don't like how it was edited and paced. And some of the stuff could have just stayed in the drafts. And I'm going to say this, okay? And then we're going to move on because you thought this was funny yesterday. I mean, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But this ain't T.I. and Tiny Family Hustle, okay? I want to see the family, okay? I want to see the family, but it gets a little bit excessive. Do I need to see Michael Vick Jr. and his sister in high school eat cereal and then prepare the sandwich, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich for his snack? I don't need to see that. Like,
Okay, this is. I just want to let you know, like, you are so funny because Tia and Tony, that show was so good. I used to love that show, first and foremost. But I feel I actually really do like the family aspect, and maybe because I am not like super into sports, so maybe that's where we like kind of like differ. I really like that they show his family because, like, they're still in Florida. And him being in Norfolk plays a big part, like, in his family dynamic. So not only is him becoming the coach of the industry, like, about him, it also greatly impacts his family. You know what I'm saying? So I like how like they're showing that because if I'm lucky enough for like my dad to be 30 minutes away, but I couldn't imagine, especially me being like in high school or me being a little kid that my dad is like states away for gone for work all the time. You know what I'm saying? So I really do like how they show like how him being a coach and his life in Norfolk impacts his family because like he's even though like the show was like focusing on him being a coach, he is someone's dad, he is someone's husband. So I do like how they like show that aspect and how like how his wife handles it, how his like kids handle it and everything, especially like his younger son because like he's still like a little kid, you know what I'm saying? Teenagers are a little bit different. Of course you want your parents around but not all the time, like you think you're grown, you doing whatever, but just seeing how his job is also like impacting his family life and mean like his now core family because his like immediate family, his brother, his mom, everyone lives like in a 7-5 area, so like that might be cool Whereas like, him and his wife, him and his kids, like that relationship might like may or may not be strained because of like the distance and like his schedule and everything. So I do like that aspect. I know you wasn't really feeling it, but I liked it.
I think the reason why I wasn't feeling it as much is because we only have so many minutes. Like the contention for me is that I want the show on BET. Don't get me wrong. Like I want this platform of BET because BET, like there's folks that's watching Martin reruns on a Saturday afternoon and during football season, it's 300,000 people watching a Martin rerun. You know what I'm saying? So like BET is still an amazing platform for these projects. But for a series such as this, or even a College Hill Celebrity Edition, or other shows like that, you have to adhere to that commercial break timing. So we don't have the time necessarily to see them eating cereal and making sandwiches. Now, if like, I like the part where it was said,
It's just so funny she keep on focusing on that one part. It's so funny.
it was just the part where the daughter comes in and she's like, "Hey, could you help him make the sandwich?" Like it
No,
was.
but that's so real though. And also shout isn't her name like London, right? Beautiful girl. Very beautiful girl. I just went to Evan. Very beautiful girl. But you're so funny. It's like you keep on talking about them making the sandwiches.
But it's just it was that part. So the parts that I feel like maybe this should have been a social media extra is like I think this could have been a social media extra. You could have put this on IG, on TikTok. Is maybe that part, and then the Marcus Vick part. Now, Marcus Vick is. They said he might have been a better quarterback than Michael Vick. We would never know. But at the same time, it's like I could have maybe seen that on YouTube, a YouTube exclusive. We could have dug deeper into that, built community on the internet. Okay, I want to see more of Kyrie Moisten. I liked his story. I want to see more of the QB battle. Let's talk to Otto and Israel. I want to see more of the practices because I just want to keep it honest. Like Norfolk State was 1-11. I want to see like why, like how are they practicing? Like what were the reps like in a practice? Like I want to see more of the film session between Israel Carter and Michael Vick. But instead, we got to stop to give the Wikipedia page for Marcus Vick. And it's like, we can do that online. Like that's just my only thing.
Yeah, I will say that I do like how you can tell they're very close, and I do love that. But that was one thing I did pick up too, like in that episode, like specifically, we learned a lot about his brother and what he got going on. And I'm just like, we don't need to know all that. Like, so how you feel about them like showing the family? Like, that's how I feel about like the segments about his brother. Of course, touch on your relationship or whatever, but it's just like we've just learned way too much. I learned more about his brother than I need to know. I had no idea that his brother even played football, like none of that. You know what I'm saying? So I learned a lot, but I feel like a good chunk of time, like you said, because you only have so much time, was spent like kind of like telling his brother's like backstory, and it's kind of irrelevant to the plot of the show. It would be different if maybe he was a coach at NSU as well or something like that, but he's just like, and I don't want it to sound like he's like his own person, but it's giving very much like, oh, this is Michael Vick's brother.
Because it is Michael Vick's brother.
And like I'm not even trying to do him like that because he's his own person. Like
I mean,
like
he is, but
so
he's Michael Vick's brother. He even talked about it in that segment where it's like, hey, man, like I wanted to hang out with my brothers. Then all of a sudden I turned 7. We was on go. I was like, so I mean, he's very much so his brother. So I mean, you're not shading him because, I mean, that's pretty much what he is at this point. That's his position on the team. I'm Michael Vick's brother. I mean, because like at the very least, he got some weight in that position because he said, hey, man, I don't know about Otto. Like, I don't know about Israel. So, I mean,
No, bro, he's okay. And can we like talk about that?
We're going to get to that because I want to talk about the parts that we did see. So it was super fast paced, the episode, but we got to talk about the moment where we see Kajafa Vick and Michael Vick. They're at the breakfast table. I guess Kajafa made breakfast and the pancakes weren't pancaking. Okay, I am a breakfast person. Eggs, turkey sausage, grits. I'm not really a pancakes type of guy. That's too much carbohydrates to start the day. So, like, I'm not. I'll eat a waffle maybe, but like, I don't know how you mess up pancakes that bad that Michael Vick really coolly said, "Yeah, it's a little bit dry." Like it was weird. Okay, I'll be honest. I'm a breakfast guy, so I can talk about this. But they had a real deal conversation about Otto and Israel, and it seemed like Kajafa sort of was like, "So what you gonna do, Michael?" And then also it was a thing of like, "Hey, like in hindsight, would you have let me take this job?" It just, to me, Kiya, it seems like Michael Vick is at this point of reflection at this point of the season about if he even should have taken the job. And the whole entire episode to me is giving uncertainty. Like that's the word of the day for the Coach Vick experience. Uncertainty. I think he's uncertain about even taking this job. I think he's uncertain about the quarterback position. I think it's a lot of things that he's uncertain about. And you see it play out very heavily in the episode. And I wrote about it in my recap on ClutchPoints. Is that when you look at Deion Sanders, for example, he spoke to Deion Sanders in episode 1. Deion is very religious. So to me, when I hear him say, "God called me collect, I had to answer," that says to me, hey, I didn't think I would be at Jackson State. I didn't even think I would be a coach at this level at Colorado or Jackson State, but I had to answer the assignment from a religious context. So that in a way is uncertainty because it's like spiritually, it's like, hey, like where is God leading me? That's uncertainty too, but it's masked within being religious and sort of the assignment of God. Michael Vick, I'm not trying to make a statement about his religious beliefs, but what I'm saying is that he's not outwardly religious. Oh, Lord Jesus, praise the Lord, I'm not going to cuss. That's not Michael Vick. So that level of uncertainty is sort of shown in a way that is not sort of shielded by religion to a certain point where we're able to see his moments of vulnerability and uncertainty, of course, about his family, but I think even about the job. And at this point of the season, I know the season's over. We've moved on. Michael Vick could be very certain about where he's at now. But at this point of the season, I think his level of uncertainty about even having the job is affecting Norfolk State at this point.
Yeah, I can definitely agree because the way that, and again, I am not a sports person, so I don't really, my opinion doesn't really matter. But from like the outside looking in, how it like it just comes off to me is that I feel like he kind of really didn't know what he was getting himself into. Because I feel like, you can have like these specialty events where you go to different schools and you host, you know, these things with players and y'all do these activities and then you go home. Being a coach is so much more, and not even just like on like the foundation of football, just being so much more than that, like outside of just, what happens on the field. Because, he even like in the first episode made comments about like, oh, managing attitudes, and I have kids calling me about housing and schedules and scholarships and all that other stuff. That all goes into being a coach, especially at the collegiate level. Cause like they're student athletes. So there's a lot more than just goes into it than just like, okay, y'all, we're having practice, we're doing this, we're doing that. So and I feel like honestly, maybe, like, him coaching at the college level, like, may not be, like, the best. Maybe he should do, like, maybe professional because these are adults. Like, even though college is still adults, I feel like professionally, not like I said, I could be wrong, that there's less, like, I feel like I don't even call them obstacles, less things you really have to worry about in a sense, because at like the professional level, you're not worried about where your players, well, you may or may not worrying about what they where they live, their schedules, things like that. So it's like it's still hands-on, but it's hands-on like in a different way, if that makes sense. Whereas being a college coach, like you really have to like, because some of these are kids, you know what I'm saying? Like you got freshmen and they may be 17, 18 years old. And as we saw, like, there's a young man on the team who needs a scholarship, and like that goes like that's like a thing in itself. So I honestly feel just based off of like these first 2 episodes, I feel like, he may have been wrapped up in the opportunity to like come back to his hometown to be a coach, after, playing professionally, but didn't really think about what really goes into being a coach, especially at the collegiate level. Because like I said, even though if you're in college, you're an adult, you still have, like, you're a team. You still have to like manage these young men. Cause even like with Otto and his attitude, like, he's 21. Yeah, he's 21. Yes, he's an adult, but it's like that's a very young adult. Of course you're gonna be upset about certain things. Of course you're gonna have an attitude about certain things. So I feel like he really wasn't ready for everything that came with being a coach. You know what I'm saying? Especially like at the collegiate level.
So I think you're totally right. And I want to go back in time to January 2025, January 22nd, 2025 to be exact. So it's 9:24 p.m. because that's when I published my article. And I'm like, hey, I see that Michael Vick was on the I Am Athlete Daily podcast with Brandon Marshall. Okay. And he was asked by Brandon Marshall what his future ambitions are in coaching. This is what he said. He said, I see myself potentially going to a Power Five one day. That's the goal. Anything I get myself involved in, I'm always going to look into the future where I can take it away. I can go or where we can go because it's a team effort. I got to have a great staff around me in order to even make this halfway go. Now, Kiya, when I heard that, my excitement for Michael Vick being at Norfolk State dissipated about 10% because you're seeing this as a stepping stone. And that's how I took it. Because how I see the Coach Vick experience and what I'm seeing on this television screen is that, sir, you don't need to think about Power Five for a few reasons. And I'm gonna keep it for a few reasons. There's one reason that I'm respectfully not gonna say that we know that Power Five gonna look at, but from a coaching standpoint, because let's really talk about it. Because Michael Vick was being mentioned by some reporters, and I wrote an editorial about it back in September. He only won one game against Virginia State. He really should not have won, and I'm keeping a buck. They were saying that he should be the coach of Virginia Tech when they fired their coach. And then before they brought in James Franklin, who was Penn State's coach, that was in the college football playoffs the year before, and they were tripping firing James Franklin. But they were like, maybe Michael Vick could be the coach because he might not can coach all that well, but he's Michael Vick, he can recruit. And it's like, I don't know at all if Michael Vick can do these things. He wins one game that Otto Kuhns won for him. I'm not going to count the Rutgers loss. That was a penciled in loss. That and that's not even being mean. That's an FBS team, and that's just what it was. But then you lose against Sacred Heart. You lose against Hampton. You lose winnable games after that. Then you get into MEAC, play your first game, Chennisberry and South Carolina State, blow the doors off them. Like, literally beat them to sleep. So it's like I'm the thing that makes me upset, Kiya, is like you talking about going to Power Five. Like, a lot of these folks are looking at Deion Sanders' journey and they're wish casting that journey. They're saying, you know what? Maybe I can coach at an HBCU and I can go to an FBS school too. But you're skipping steps because Deion coached at the high school level. Deion also is Deion, and he had a plan. He had a son that he created that became a quarterback. So it's like it all made sense for him at that time. And he had the number one recruit, the future Heisman winner, the number 2 draft pick last year that was willing to come to Jackson State for a year and make things happen and make his resume more appealing to FBS schools. Michael Vick has a quarterback that we're saying don't play. So it's a different scenario. So I just think, and I just got to say, maybe you should not look at the future. Maybe you should stop looking ahead and look at what's in front of you at this point in September 2025 as we're looking at this, because you might stumble because there might be something you're going to trip over that's in front of you need to look at. That's how I feel about
it. Okay. But you're not, and honestly, you're not wrong in a sense because, I feel like we as people, we always like to look to the future about like, what we want for ourselves, like, later on in life. But some like the downside with that is sometimes we miss like what's happening right in front of us. And it's just like I feel like even and it's fair for him to want to have that goal. However, comma, you have to truly nurture what's really in front of you. And then just how his and again, one of my favorite quotes um from a movie, and I'm sure every football team that had to watch this movie when they wasn't acting right, remember the Titans. That's a classic. Shout out to Denzel. You know what I'm saying? Is attitude reflects leadership. So it's like if you have this attitude of like, um, oh, like, woo doo doo, and like, just how you come off, of course your players are going to reflect that. And we can see how, like in brief moments of the show, how like some of the players like respond to him and like his decisions. So it's just like while I definitely understand him wanting to his goals for the future, you truly have to nourish what you have right now. And again, my opinion truly doesn't matter because I'm not a football person, I'm not a sports person. But what it gives, it's like, okay, come on, guys, like it's just giving like I'm just here counting my time until a better opportunity comes along. But the opportunity is not going to come along if you're not producing the results. Dion was producing the results. Jackson State was putting BTA on a lot of people. And while I understand, this is his first season with NSU and like you have to get things like in order, in addition to them, winning that one game against Virginia State because and they didn't include this in the show because Virginia State missed a field goal. If we're being quite honest, that's the only reason why they won. Like you said, you are losing very winnable games. So you're not going to get to where you are because you're not truly nurturing what you have right now. And just how his attitude is, it's kind of reflecting that. It's giving like, oh well, okay, like it's giving like, oh, okay. And it's like you really shouldn't be like that because you didn't have to take this opportunity if you really weren't ready. You know what I'm saying? And you have to be real with yourself and admit maybe I, you know, did get it over my head. Maybe coaching, I thought this was something that I wanted. Maybe it is still something that I want, but it's a lot harder than like I thought it was gonna be. Because like I said, like just from like the outside looking in, especially like at the collegiate level, it's more than just going to practice and telling them what to do. There's so much more that goes into being a coach. So it's like if you don't have the correct attitude about what you got going on and where you are, your team's not going to have the right attitude either. So therefore, by you not having the right attitude, they're not going to have the right attitude, and you're going to lose. And I feel like just based off of what we saw, that's what happened this season. Because like I said, his attitude is given like, I want to be here, but I kind of don't want to be here. But I want to be here because this can help me to get to really where I want to be, not because I truly want to be here and I believe in this team. And it's just kind of like it's kind of disheartening because it's just like HBCU teams have so much to offer, and I really hate that people view us as stepping stones to get to where they really want to be. And it feels like no one truly wants to be here to truly be here. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's kind of like what happened with Deion Sanders a little bit, where I feel like you know, his time was, I feel like, a little bit more authentic. I feel like he really did enjoy his time at Jackson State. That's just my personal opinion from what I saw. Again, I wasn't too heavy in it. You covered him more than me. But I did have that thought too, like, dang, like, you ain't had to leave. So I really hate that, like, how people just, like, use HBCUs to, like, get to where they want to go. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, if your heart's truly not in it, then that's a decision you have to make on to like step aside for someone who truly wants to be there, who truly wants to work, and not just using this as an opportunity like, oh, like maybe I can like eventually go to Virginia Tech or go somewhere else. And it's just like, and I really wish that we stop thinking just because a former athlete went to the school that means they should be the coach. Because
when I tell you that is so true. I know you say you're not a sports girly, but you get it. Okay. You get this portion of it. Because see, here's the thing. Because listen, we can talk about the QB battle, but I can literally just go and edit what I said last week because it's the same thing this week. I mean, Otto Coons won that game for Norfolk State over Virginia State. That was just what it was. So let me just say, because you made such a great point, because you said you're not inundated in the sports world. Fortunately and unfortunately, I am. And it's very unfortunate sometimes. So the problem with this celebrity coaching experiment is that you have several
Isn't it
different
a trend? It's like y'all doing it for fun.
But it's a trend for a specific reason. It's a trend because it's not just because of Dion, because we've had former NFL players that have been coaches. We can look at Doug Williams and the fact that he went to Grambling. He then goes to the NFL, becomes the first black quarterback to win Super Bowl MVP with the Washington Redskins at that time, now the Commanders. Then he succeeds Eddie G. Robinson. He succeeds Eddie G. Robinson, who coached for 5 decades at Grambling. He's the guy. He leads them to success. We've seen these different things before. I can go down all the names of people that played in the NFL, even were stars, and coached at HBCUs before Dion, Michael Vick, Deshaun Jackson, and the like. The thing about the modern day celebrity coach is the fact that they come with connection, resources, and people that are interested in the story of them at this specific HBCU. And that's the thing that is a dual-edged sword, because you're surmising that, number one, that Michael Vick was so good at the NFL. He's so prolific as a quarterback. He's now an analyst for Fox Sports in 2024, that he knows enough about the game to teach it to young college athletes. And those athletes will buy into going to Norfolk State to play for Michael Vick. And then there's going to be some highly touted Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders type guys that will come play for him. Also, there's a money play because it's a story that you're selling in the Virginia area to have Michael Vick coach at Norfolk State. The problem is he ain't never been a coach a day in his life. Like he has about the same coaching experience that I do. Okay, I probably won at least 2 games. You know what I'm saying? So my whole entire thing is like, that's the problem. The problem is that you are essentially replacing the coaching experience for a guy that's popping because he might can get you a sponsorship or two or an athlete or two to say, you know what, forget this NIL. I'm going to get the money on the back end. Let me go play for my hero that I played Madden 05 with Michael Vick all the time with the Falcons. That's what this is, to be honest. And what we're dealing with is everybody ate Deshaun Jackson post Dion. Deshaun Jackson is, I believe, going to be the outlier because he had a strong staff. He had Coach Clark on that staff that knew how to develop players and recruit them, and they had an identity of running the ball. Michael Vick can't even pick which quarterback he wants. Like, you can't pick the quarterback, man. You are one of the best quarterbacks ever, and you can't pick the quarterback. That's the problem.
And this is a point that I wanted to touch on earlier. As great as he was, you know what I'm saying, for the little knowledge I do know about football, Michael Vick was that guy when he was playing. But we can clearly see, I don't want to say he doesn't know what he's doing, because that may sound kind of harsh, especially coming from someone who, just like his kids, don't know what a first down is. So, like I said, my opinion, take it with a grain of salt. But, however, that first episode in the game where we saw Izzy again, no shade to the young man, I'm sure he putting in work trying to do what he got to do. If I was a coach, right? If I was Michael Vick and my starting quarterback failed to perform during the game, and I had to put in our backup quarterback during the game, and the backup quarterback outshined the starting quarterback, there is no way on God's green earth he would have started in the next game. And that's just real. And like I said, this is coming from someone who knows nothing about the sport. So it's just like, and I'm sitting here watching, like, in the first episode when he was like, oh, well, Izzy's going to be starting again next week. I hear the TV. I was like, why? Did you not see what he just did? Like, and again, no shade to Izzy, because I'm sure he was probably nervous. You know what I'm saying? Like, but he did not perform well. That's just, we're just gonna call it spade a spade. He did not perform well. You know, he ended up having to sit on the bench. Otto did his thing. Otto been doing his thing, and the team, like, been doing that ever since he got to NSU. So it's like, for you to put him in the game, for him to low key save y'all, even though y'all still lost, and for you to say, "Oh, is he still gonna start next week?" I was like, I didn't hear that correctly. Cause why? Like, it really made, with me with the basic knowledge of football, it made no sense. Why are you going to start the player who could not perform? You know what I'm saying? And in my head too, this is Virginia State. This is a big game. Like, you know, it may not seem like a big game to other people. This is like a big rivalry game. So I don't know if you ever seen what's the Dancing Dolls? And with Coach D, I'm put the baddest on the floor. He didn't put the baddest on the floor. He puts the baddest on the floor after they get beat up a little bit. So it's just like, from a viewer perspective, and like, what are you doing as a coach? You know what I'm saying? So just because you were that man at Virginia Tech and you were that man as a player for the Falcons and whoever else, it doesn't necessarily mean you have the right tools to be a coach. You know what I'm saying? You know, so those who can't do teach, is kind of, those who can maybe shouldn't coach.
At this point, those who don't teach should watch at this point. Like, I mean, because that's just, and I'm not trying to be mean or try to give a hot take. This is just how I was feeling. Like, I gotta take the people through the ups and downs of covering this experience, because I wanted Michael Vick to be good so bad for a very selfish reason. Because I knew it would be good for business. If Michael Vick's good, oh my gosh, the ClutchPoints numbers are going crazy, and the podcast numbers are going crazy, and like the folks that aren't the sports girlies are tuning in. Like, like, it's just like they're like, oh, what's this? Oh, that's a good jump shot. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, like, I'm just like,
that's a just jump shot. It's so nasty. Don't do my girls like that. We know what a touchdown is. Don't play. Don't play.
Okay, but that's good. But what I was saying, like, it would have been great for Michael Vick to be successful. And I want it for Norfolk State so badly, because they're so good at everything else. Because one thing that I like about the show is that I think that they treat some of these topics very well. And I think that they treated Virginia State with a lot of reverence, because if you do not know football, you would not know that Virginia State is a Division II HBCU, and the folks in the FCS, and I'm a Fort Valley State graduate, so I'm not speaking from some high horse. I'm speaking from on the ground punching up. Okay, like, they look at Division II HBCUs like we are the Pee Wee football league, and if you're on the schedule, it's an automatic win. And it irks me so much, because no matter how good a school is and what you do, and even the past history, like, Tuskegee has beaten Alabama State many times before. I think they lead that series. We beat Alcorn back in the day. Fort Valley with Kent Schoolfield back in the day. They stopped scheduling Fort Valley. Like, man, like, it's so many other schools. Like, Virginia State has beaten Norfolk State so many times, so much so that Dawson Odoms apologized to the fans, and he sounded so sincere. Like, it makes me so upset, because they're like, oh, this Division II school. BT did not do that, and I give them a lot of, and Smack Entertainment, BT, they did not do that. And for that, I appreciate it, because if you do not know HBCU football and you do not watch college football, because truth be told, Kiya, there's a lot of NFL fans that don't know nothing about college football. So they might know FBS, but they might not know Division II, Division III, NAIA, junior colleges. They don't know these other divisions. So they treated Virginia State like Virginia State was a rival on the Division I level. And I did like that. I also liked how they humanized Kyrie Morston, having that touching journey of death in his family, him transferring to Norfolk State, moving back to Virginia, and wanting to get a scholarship, him having a good game against Towson, and then ultimately Michael Vick gives him the scholarship. It would have been a more touching moment if Michael Vick on camera could emote a little bit more. Because if this was the Coach Prime docuseries, man, people would have been crying. That scene would have won an Emmy because Dion would have been going crazy.
And that's and like and you really said like a lot of good stuff, just like starting from touching on like from like the D2 perspective. And that's honestly where like a lot of course, HBCU school rivalry is rivalry. And that's where like, especially for me going to Virginia State and outside of just like the world of sports, just knowing what Virginia State has to offer and the education that I received while I was there. That's why like when especially like people from Norfolk State like talk about Virginia State. And I know it's weird coming from me because I also went to Norfolk State. Both great schools. Both wonderful schools. But I always said that I would not be the person I am today without Virginia State University, and that's just what it is. Virginia State has so much to offer, and just touching in like from a sports perspective, yeah, Virginia State's like that. When I was in school, our head coach was Coach Barlow, and when I tell you, Virginia State was going crazy on everybody. So it's like just because we're D2, that doesn't mean that we're not as good as like other schools. And that's like from like people that I know, that'd be like their main argument as from like Norfolk State and Virginia State. It's like, oh, we're D1 and y'all D2, so that doesn't really mean anything. And then like you touched on last week, if we really wanted to be D1, we could. There's that's just a decision they're just choosing not to make right now, but we really could if we wanted to be. And so it's just like, I do agree. I like how they then try to like, oh, it's big bad Norfolk State versus little Virginia State, because that probably would have turned me off from watching the show, because like, don't, especially come as being an alumna, like don't play my school. But I did enjoy, like, as you said, like the young man, like his journey, like going back to like Virginia, like trying to get his scholarship. And again, and maybe because I'm just an emotional person, it was given, like you said, like I feel like it could have came off better if, and maybe that's just not his personality, to be super expressive with his emotions. That you know I'm sure he can understand the struggle of needing a scholarship, needing to pay for school. So he was just kind of like, "Oh, there you go," like, and cool. We on the next episode. And Dion really would have been like, you supposed to, like, he would have given him a little bit more. And maybe, like I said, this just isn't Michael Vick's personality. And I know how you have your own things about Deion Sanders, but just how he comes off to people in those situations. And I've seen like clips on TikTok about him, like, him talking to his players. He's a very likable person. So it's like, I think that's why I kind of, if I had to choose between like watching a show about a coach's journey, I would much rather watch, Deion Sanders, despite, whatever football related, just like his personality and how he comes off, how he interacts with his players. You know what I'm saying? You can tell like he really cares. Like, and he just gives like a little bit more. He's very charismatic. I think because he's a Leo. We're very like that. So we're very much like that. I had to put that out there. But like, I do agree. Like, the scene, like, where he tells the boy he gets a scholarship, it was kind of like, okay, here you go. We got your bread. And next week on the Coach Vick Experience, it just kind of just like moved on. Like, no heartfelt words. Like, I understand this was like a lot for you. And, we want you to be a part of the team. I'm glad we can do this for you. Like, nothing. It was just kind of like, all right, see that practice. Like, that was just it.
Yeah, it's honestly a lot ultimately when it comes down to that. I think that just the show was too quick, but I do like that aspect of things and how that went. Um for me, there's really nothing more to say about this episode. I really didn't care for it. I liked the first episode. I didn't like the second episode because the pacing was awful. Like it just wasn't good to me. If this is how the Coach Vick experience is going to be, I'm not really going to enjoy it all that much. And then they don't win another game. I mean, so it's they we know how to start like the game. The episode I want to see, show me the episode where they play South Carolina State. Because Jesus, I watched that game because I was watching that game, and then what was the score? Oh, we're going to figure out what the score was because that was the same day that Deshaun Jackson played North Carolina Central and they beat North Carolina Central. So, and I was watching that game too. So it's always hard because I watched like 5 games at once and I can't pay attention, and I end up getting sleepy if I go too long. So they lost 20-51, Norfolk State on their homecoming, 20-51. Like, and mind you,
Wait, it was NSU's homecoming.
It was Norfolk State's homecoming.
No one. See, I knew I was deciding on where I was gonna go. God told me not to make that drive.
It was. Now I heard the homecoming was really good. A lot of folks were there.
Oh, yeah.
However,
it was a good time, but 51-20,
and that's Chinnisberry's South Carolina State Bulldogs. They are different. They won the Celebration Bowl. If you did not watch that Celebration Bowl, if you aren't a sports fan or a sports girly, go watch it. You'll love sports after that. 4 overtime classic. Like, they were down. Like, it was on ABC. Go watch. You will be a sports fan, and your favorite team will be South Carolina State.
that's so crazy. And just like, of course, hearing stuff like after the Labor Day Classic and Norfolk State beat Virginia State, they was like, oh, well, we beat y'all, da da da. And it's just like, I would not be boasting if my one win of the season was like just barely. You know what I'm saying? I would brag if I whooped someone 51-29. I would talk so much trash, but 51-29. That is during homecoming.
But that's
so crazy.
Here's the thing, though, Kiya. Here's the thing. Okay.
That's really insane.
I know, because you're not the only person in my life that has said they're not a sports girly. You're not the only one. It's a lot of y'all that say this. It's probably trademarked. Be careful. Okay. Like, you're not the only person that has said this. And here's the thing. The people you think are sports fans are just fans of the narrative. Like, this is why, Kiya, when people are like, oh, all these women watch Real Housewives and Love and Hip Hop. Dude, you don't like basketball. You definitely don't like the NBA, how y'all be talking about it. You don't like the NFL. You don't like college football. You like the drama. You like the players and the girlfriends that they're talking to. You like drama just as much as the drama they have on Real Housewives. So, like, these folks are not sports fans, because if they're sitting up and listen, I have no dog in this fight. I love the issue. I love Norfolk State. But if they're sitting up and they're bragging, hey, we beat y'all, and they're 1-11, and you get baptized on your homecoming by God's disciple Chinnisberry, and you don't win NAM of the game, you go up to Philadelphia and get ran over by Deshaun Jackson in front of the governor of Delaware and everybody that was there, you cannot say, oh, we beat y'all, Kiya. Yeah, we got y'all. You're not going to hear me be like, yeah, we so much better than Albany State. Albany State has, I've been, Kiya, I went to Fort Valley State, you know this, 2015 to 2019. We graduated the same day, December 14, 2019, okay? Between August 2015 and February 2026, I have only seen Fort Valley beat Albany State twice. And to be honest, I didn't see it because 2016, I thought Tom Joyner was coming. So I stayed outside of the game because I wanted to meet my hero. Okay. So I did not see that win. And the second time, I was at Best Buy getting the MacBook. Okay, I needed a new computer. So I literally did not see Emmanuel Wilson, a future NFL player, beat Albany State. And then the game I did go to, we get beat down and I get a cramp. Okay. I couldn't even walk for a little bit. I had to have the alumni nursing me back to health. Like this is like, you're not going to say, yeah, we beat Albany State, because I'm a rational sports fan. And I'm not going to say things that don't make sense. So that's just my thing. Like if they're telling you, yeah, we beat Virginia State, we really big state. Y'all 1-11. Virginia State was 4-3 in the CIAA. Virginia State's probably going to be better this year. So come on. Dr. Frazier is an amazing coach. See, I'm a sports fan. I'm really a sports fan. I really do. I get paid for this. Okay. It makes me upset. I have no dog in this fight, but that's crazy to me.
I just want you to know you're probably like one of the funniest people that I've ever met, because you are so hilarious. But yeah, it's just like, it just be throwing me because I'm just like, barely. Like when I like, but what they say in the fairy tale, hair on the chinny chin chin. That's how y'all won. And it's just like I always say, if it's VSU against Norfolk State, VSU hands down. Unless you against anybody else, unless you whatever. But it's just like, y'all are not that good. Y'all not good. I'm so sorry. Y'all are just not good. And y'all really can't talk about no one else. With like, whether Michael Vick is your coach or not, even before Michael Vick became the coach, they still sucked. No shade. They were still bad. So it's like.
And if you want me to be honest, if you want me to really be honest about how I feel like I'm being very honest this episode. If you want if you want me to be really honest,
you are so funny.
Dawson Odom should have stayed the coach. He should have stayed the coach, because Dawson Odom, let's check the record. So Michael Vick was 1-11. Okay. Dawson Odom
that's not funny, but
it was 1-11. Dawson Odom in 2024 was 4-8. He won 3 more games. Okay. He beat Virginia State 28-23. Okay. Lost to Hampton. You beat Virginia Military Institute. They shouldn't have played that game. Okay. You lose to Towson 23-28. You beat Howard. You beat Delaware State. They probably want to beat Delaware State this year. But like it would have been a little bit better. I think that they did Dawson Odom's a little bit wrong, because Dawson Odoms was trying to figure some things out with a football program that's historically been a loser. You did all of that. You paid all that money just to go 1-11 and have like a docu-series that moves like I'm pressing fast forward on the remote. Like why is the docu-series move? I feel I'm in a time machine. Like what? Like why move so quick?
So fast. And it's just like, and like, but like you said, you made like a great point. They're not really thinking about, oh, like the team. They're thinking it's a business. Because I think for homecoming, like it was either the homecoming game or like the first game was like the most, like they had sold tickets like ever, because everyone wants to see Michael Vick at Norfolk State. So, you know what I'm saying? It's bringing, attention in that way, but at the same time, the team is just not good. And like I said, just again, coming from someone who don't really know about sports like that, I can just kind of, and granted, we already know how the season ended, but really just like looking at it, I couldn't understand. So this is like how my point of view, right? With the limited knowledge I do know about football, Michael Vick was good, like really, really good. In college, in the NFL, really, really good. So when at the end of the season, when I saw they were 1-11, I'm just like, well, how'd that happen? Because it's Michael Vick. He was like that. You know what I'm saying? Again, coming from someone who don't really know nothing. But however, that first episode, when was that? It was against Towson, right? When they lost against Towson, and again, no shade to Izzy. Izzy was not playing up to par. You put Otto in the game, Otto do what he gotta do. He was able to like help y'all recoup a little bit, even though y'all still lost. And you sat there and still said Izzy's gonna start next week. I said, Oh, that's why y'all are 1-11, because you're making decisions like that. And this is a question I have for you. Do you feel that he is letting their personal relationship have too much influence, like, on his coaching decisions?
Yes, 1,000%. When
Yeah.
when you are in the office and you're having a film session, and Michael Vick, and here's a background on Michael Vick a little bit. Michael Vick was very naturally talented. He was a great athlete. He was an okay thrower of the football, but he just was so electric that when he took off and ran, you couldn't do anything with him. And he took that to the NFL, and he was such a culture changer with Allen Iverson, who we know he's really close with, and Michael Vick being in Atlanta, such a black city, like he became an icon, right? But he was not a great thrower of the football. And oftentimes, like, they could stop him in the run if they put a spy on him. Well, you have a designated player on the defense that is quick as well, that is watching Michael Vick. He takes off running. That player is going to get him. You can have different blitzes. QB contain the linemen. They come on the side of the quarterback to make sure that he doesn't take off on that side or that side. There were ways to contain that, and he wasn't that great of a thrower of the football. Another thing a lot of people don't know about Michael Vick, and he admitted this himself, he was not a student of the game in a real way. Because with Michael Vick, he wasn't looking at the playbook. He wasn't looking at film. He coasted off his natural talent, and he realized as a point as he got more experience as a pro that that was the wrong thing to do. And you saw, I think, a more mature, polished Vick when he was with Deshaun Jackson and the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's a part of the story a lot of people don't know, is that Michael Vick wasn't some LeBron James style savant that can call out coverages and all different stuff. That wasn't what Michael Vick was. Michael Vick isn't what Tom Brady portrays himself as. Michael Vick was a naturally great athlete. No one could stop him on the run unless you tailored your defense. And he was an okay thrower of the football, not great. This is why I look at him crazy from this standpoint, because he should be able to better develop Izzy or even Otto, because you weren't a student of the game. So he's sitting back talking about, oh, these kids so emotional. Dude, you weren't even looking at the playbook when you were at Tech.
I was just about to ask, do you think by him having that approach, it kind of had an effect on how he's a coach now? Because I feel like when you have, like, when you are a student of whatever you're doing, you have a deeper understanding, and I feel like a deeper appreciation for what you're doing. So it's like you approach it like differently, but not saying like, definitely like not in a cocky way or anything, but because he was kind of like for such a long time just able to just do things naturally and really didn't have to like follow a guideline. Do you think that all those years of working like that has had, like, some type of impact on, like, how he chooses to, like, coach his players now?
I think it does, but it doesn't. I think it does because he can't get over how good of a quarterback he was, but I think it doesn't because he now understands that his players need to understand how to play the position of quarterback. Like, basically, they need to understand how to do the job. And I think that he is allowing his personal relationship with Izzy to cloud the fact that Otto at this point can do the job incredibly well. And I think that that is the problem. I think that the uncertainty, but also the fact that he's trying to preserve a relationship. And a sneaky thing for me is I think that we're going to see some movement on that front. Because, spoiler alert for the folks that don't know, Otto becomes the starter, but Otto gets injured against North Carolina Central. He's out for the rest of the season. That was in November. It was actually a really bad injury. So I'm interested to see how they showcase that as we move towards the end of the season. So there was another backup quarterback that comes in for Norfolk State. It wasn't Israel. It was Vincent Berry. So North Carolina Central was one of the better teams in the MEAC and in HBCU football. They were right there neck and neck with South Carolina State. So Vincent Berry comes in for Otto Coombs, throws 2 touchdowns. They get close to beating North Carolina Central in a huge upset. It was like November the 8th. So what I want to know is what happened to Israel, because if Israel is now the backup and Otto is the deemed starter, because he starts against Sacred Heart, he starts against Hampton, he starts in every other game, including that big game against Deshaun Jackson and Delaware State. What I want to know that I don't know is what happened to Izzy, because I think that gets really interesting. I'm not saying I know anything because I am clueless. I don't know, but some happened because who's Vincent Berry? Okay, I'm not saying it in this rough way, but I'm like, Vincent Berry, he ain't even featured on the show. Like, where this person came from?
Yeah. Yours again, one of the funniest people I know, but like that's real because it's just like, and I understand like I came to that understand because it's just like at the end of the day you have a job to do, and eventually it shouldn't. I'm trying to find the right ways to say this because even though Otto started, they still lost all them games. So it's just like it's kind of hard to even really piece together what I want to say.
But what I'll say that about that is that Otto did his thing. It wasn't Otto's fault in those moments because Otto played his part. Because two things Norfolk State had. They had a steady quarterback when they bring Otto in, and you have J.J. Evans and Drayshawn Kendrick that are like amazing wide receivers. It was widely known within the HBCU sports community that although Norfolk State was a 1-11 team, they had probably the best wide receiver room in all of HBCU football because like those two guys were like that. So Michael Vick like struck gold having them on the team. You just needed someone to get the ball to them. And they're going to spotlight Kavon King next week. Kavon King, he got injured, but he had a shaky season depending on what we expected from him because he won preseason awards. So we thought he'd be a good running back, but he was shaky. Then he gets injured. So you have a running game that's non-existent, and then Otto's not really a runner. Israel's more your dual threat quarterback. So you got two guys that can catch the ball real well. You should be winning games and putting up big numbers. So if you have a quarterback and some wide receivers, why are you losing? It was because of Michael Vick and his coaching staff at that point. It wasn't Otto. It was them. Well, Kiya, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, X. I think that's it. At Kiya on Fire, and you can find my work on ClutchPoints.com and the HBCUPulse.com.